you open your eyes. It's still night, and you're immediately wide awake because God woke you up this morning, as he's done every morning since you've come to this far-off country to be a slave in the house of the Egyptian official Potiphar. After realizing your fated life away from your family, away from everything you've ever known, your only desire was to honor the God who you've known your whole life. This God of your fathers, especially out here in a country full of all kinds of gods, will be your only God, and he is your everything. And as you sit up in bed, the rest of your reality suddenly comes back to you. No, you are not in Potiphar's house, getting up before the household staff to pray while the house is still empty and quiet. No, you've moved on from there now, and no, you're not in the jail you were wrongfully imprisoned in for over 3 years either. You get up out of bed, and as your feet feel the floor, you remember that you are in your own house now, with a wife and children who love you, and a career and a position of authority to manage the affairs of the kingdom of Egypt only under Pharaoh himself. You are happy in your new life. You are blessed by God. You are Joseph. You've forgotten the heartache of your enslavement. You've forgotten the pains of your servitude. You've forgotten the longings of your imprisonment. Forget your father's home, though? No. Well, in a way. You miss your father. You miss your brothers even. But you figure that if they had missed you, they would have come searching for you by now. But in this new reality, you feel honored to be the one called by God to help so many people survive. This is the second year of the famine, and as you stand in your place of dispensing the stores of grain, you receive thanks every day from the many people who come to you, and you bring these thanks to God in your prayers every night in reflection and thanksgiving. You remember the expressions of each face and family who came to you as you pray. Who knows what would have been their fate if God had not given guidance through you just before such a difficult time for their nation. Even people outside of Egypt come to buy grain. What a platform you've been given. What a reach God has given you to do good. What an honor it is to serve others the way that you're able. Today, you've just arrived at the distribution center, and the line has already begun to form, even though the sun has barely peeked up over the monuments of the pharaohs. And as you scan the first people in the small crowd beginning to form, all at once you spot the face of your brother Reuben, and then you hear the sound of Judah's voice, and then you can even see Naphtali a dozen yards behind them tying some donkeys to a post, and then seeing the others, you realize that your brothers are here. Your vision blurs, your head begins to spin, your breath leaves you this dizzying realization that your brothers, your captors, your perpetrators of injustice were bowing low in front of you. And this is far too much to react to in that instant. You need a moment and you take it. The last time your brothers saw you, you were a scrawny teenager with soft skin. On over 20 years in Egypt has made you into a different man. Obviously unrecognizable to your brothers, and sometimes unrecognizable even to yourself. Your clothes are of fine linen, decked with gold. Your head and face are shaved. You've built a muscled frame over your decades of servitude. You've got a deep tan now, and you're speaking in Egyptian. Plus, you're older. But will they still recognize you? No. Even though a brother might be able to still see past those changes, you also have to come to realize that people in general tend to see a position of power and authority itself more than they can ever see the person behind it. So you hide there in plain sight as you stare at these men who you have only seen in your dreams for far so long. Then it hits you. Only 10 of your brothers have come. And you wonder, you worry about why Benjamin isn't with them. After you had been taken away, how did your brothers treat him? Did they go after baby Benjamin next? Through your interpreter, you talk with them. You listen to their request to buy grain. You listen to their story, where they're from and how long it's taken them to get there. And you, in turn, keep probing to get the answers you need to know. Oh, so you're 12 brothers, are you? Can you prove your story? Oh, one's no more, huh? Yeah. Well, that's a pity. And where's the other one? Did you throw him into a pit? Oh, he's at home with his father. How is Dad? How is your father? Is he well? Is he in good health? And suddenly you realize who's in front of you. Suddenly you take in the situation. You exclaim with no warning at all, "You are spies. You are here to try to find Egypt's weakness. That's why you're here. I don't believe your little story." Are you overreacting? A little bitter, maybe. But you're needing to keep up the facade. The Egyptians already have a historical prejudice against people from Canaan as potential enemies. You are always suspicious and shrewd around other foreigners, so you feel that this accusation isn't out of what might be expected, even though you did lay it on pretty thick. But you need to see their true intentions. So this is necessary, you tell yourself. As they plead with you and insist that their story is true, you listen with a face of sandstone. But when they call themselves honest men, you cut them off. "I'm convinced that you are spies," you exclaim. "So you will have to prove to me otherwise. I'll let one of you go and fetch this other brother, and the rest of you will have to stay with me in a prison until he comes back. That's it. I made up my mind. Now you make up yours." You go to sleep that night knowing that your brothers are in a cold, lightless jail cell, not knowing if they'd ever get out. And yes, knowing that felt good, but no, it felt good. You had been in prison for 3 whole years. They could see what it felt like to be in there for 3 days. But the next day, and especially as you ask God for guidance in your life, your hardened heart, it begins to soften or melt, burn? You're not sure. You begin remembering the promises of God for you set out at the beginning, that God is the one who has pulled you out and will pull you through any and every difficult time. You remember the stories of your forefathers and how they trusted God and also how they treated others. And now you begin to see your own situation against your brothers, backlit by the stories of God's forgiveness and acts of mercy. And in contrast, you see you've been harsh. Kindness is how you need to respond, even to them. Even to your mean brothers, even if they haven't changed one bit. You also realize, after following this new path of thinking, that your plans had to change anyway. You realize that your original plan, it wouldn't work. That your father wouldn't send Benjamin with just one brother going back. Your father is stubborn, and he wouldn't be convinced. He would need many voices to convince him. Plus, it wasn't safe for the journey there or the journey back with just a few. You have to send them all. Well, minus one. But who? You have your brothers released from their cells the morning of the third day. Your interpreter explains to them that you're letting them go, and new arrangement is that one must stay behind as surety of their return with their youngest brother. And if they don't return, you will know that they are spies, and they and their families will starve to death because they will never see your face again without first bringing their youngest brother. And these brothers of yours would have left you to starve in that pit, but you're not like them, and you still do care about them. You also care about their families back home. So, contrary to your threats, you have food prepared to go back with them on their journey home. And with this act of generosity, your brothers are immediately confronted with their own wrongdoing and unworthiness. You hear them exclaiming amongst themselves, "In truth, we are guilty of our brother. We saw his anguish and heard his begging, and we didn't listen. This is why all of this is happening to us." You are hearing your brothers blame themselves. You're surprised to hear them talk of how they deserve such harsh treatment they've received. Their guilt comes pouring out as they consider what's happening to them, and it was your small act of kindness that triggered them to voice their repentance. You expected them to exit the cell with cursings and at least sneers, but instead you see humility and tears. Reuben then speaks up. "I told you not to sin against the boy, but did you listen? No. So now this is payback for his blood." You are hearing answers to questions you've long thought and details you didn't know of what happened that day so long ago. Your eyes burst with tears, and you rush back into the building to weep and collect your thoughts. It wasn't Reuben? You thought for sure all these years him being the oldest was the one to have made you a slave. You've had so many questions and so much anger against him. And now, it turns out it wasn't him at all. In fact, he had spoken out for you and against what your other brothers had done. He was the only one, apparently also. How you have thought so wrongly all this time. So if it wasn't Reuben, who instigated the act? Then who? Next in line is, you march back out with a swiftness and direct your guard to go in among them and bind the second oldest, Simeon. You hear Simeon say, "What? Why me?" You know why, you think to yourself. All of this could go one of two ways. They could leave their brother and never return, proving their selfishness and that they have not changed one bit and deserve what you put them through. Or, it's now been months since your brothers left with promise to bring Benjamin back. Months that you've had to wait. Months that you've had to wonder. Months to think. Months to plan. And as the months continue, you conclude that they left their brother Simeon for dead. They didn't care about him either, which doesn't surprise you and just gives you further evidence to confirm your suspicions that they really haven't changed at all. And then one day you see them, and they have another with them, and you know it must be Benjamin. You lean over to your assistant. "They're here," you say as you stand and exit the negotiating platform and leave toward your home. You don't want to stay and mess this up. You've had your brothers escorted to your home, their animals fed, your brothers brought inside, their feet washed, Simeon brought out as well, and told to wait for you to arrive at noon for a meal. As you enter, you see your brothers still talking with the steward of your house. When you come out into the center of the room, again your brothers quickly bow down, even with their faces on the ground. You don't want to see them do this, but you're not going to stop them. You see your brothers give a basket to your assistant and hear Judah say that it was brought for you, and they explain what is in it. Medicinal balms and perfume of myrrh, also native fruits and also almonds, which were rare in Egypt and had to be imported, nuts, a species that only grows back home, and honey. But not honey that's collected from hives of bees. You got plenty of that in Egypt. But a kind that's made from boiling grapes. A simple but special juice reduction. The kind that you used to have as a boy. The kind that Bilhah would make and save for special occasions for the family. You can't wait to devour that gift basket later that evening and alone. Then you look up and you see Benjamin more closely. Wow, he's grown up. The last time you saw Benjamin was when he was just a boy, half your height. Now a full-grown man, but the same bright eyes that he had back then. Too much time has passed, and you want to run to hug him, but you can't. You leave again quickly to find a place to be alone, a place to weep, you feel like you're just going to burst. You find that your sleeping chamber is empty as your wife and sons are not in the house at that time of day. You stand in front of that polished bronze shield on the wall and stare at your face filled with tears and keep trying to hold them back. "Stop crying," you say to your reflection. "You're going to see who they really are soon enough, and then there will be plenty of time to be together. There will be so much time, good times again." You come back into the banquet hall when you've already instructed your assistants to seat them and in order from oldest to youngest, just a little something to keep them guessing. When your regular Egyptian guests are seated at their table, you take your seat at your own table of honor, and you give word to the servers, and they quickly enter carrying various trays of food, cheeses and vegetables, breads of all varieties, and meats, choice marinated beef steaks and fatted geese with their rich savor. You watch your brother's eyes shift from you at your table to the platters of delicacies with a delight you had forgotten knowing so well. It still does bring you joy to see them happy. You instruct the server to give to Benjamin 5 times what you would have the servers give to any one of the other brothers. And even though that's way too much for any one person to eat, you watch one of your older brothers lean over, and instead of trying to steal a piece off of Benjamin's plate, he gingerly places another piece off his own plate onto Benjamin's mountain of meat in the sight of everyone and laughs at his own joke. These are your brothers. Could they really have changed? These are your brothers, the ones who threw you into a pit. Your brothers who would have left you for dead. Your brothers who pulled you out only to sell you off into slavery. Your brothers. Could they really have changed? Then, like the small flame of a candle, a hope flickers in your heart of a new possibility for you and for them a possibility of relationship. True, genuine relationship with these men you've admired from before you could talk. The light of peace and reconciliation glows in the emptiness of possibility. Look what God has done already. What could God still have in store for you, you wonder? You still need to see what they'll do, but the next stage of your plan will tell. You send them away thinking of how good God is to allow you to be in the position you are. There's no other way, you realize, to face hardship and tomorrow except to learn to trust God's hand moving in your own story and in the story of others. But only the next chapters will tell you more.